Hi guys, and welcome to Starfisher and Friends. I'm Starfisher, and
I'm friend. Why carry feel?
yes, my friend for this video is Waiki Redfield. And this is the first episode of our Finally Played series, where we talk about a game that came out a while ago, but we only got to play recently. And for this episode, that game is Batman Arkham Asylum from 2009. That's like over 10 years ago. So long ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I played 4 years ago, which is also quite long ago. Although I 100% it, I don't quite remember much
Yeah.
details, but some things are still memorable. Whether or
I
not it is memorable for you, we shall see.
Yeah, I played it a few weeks ago and it holds up pretty well. But okay, first let's talk about the story. Batman takes Joker to Arkham Asylum, but Joker escapes cause it's part of his plan, and so you have to stop Joker from getting some superhuman serum, and along the way you have to go through multiple other Batman enemies like Scarecrow, Ivy, Killer Croc, etc. So basically it's Batman versus Joker with several of his other rogues gallery guys in the way. Simple, effective, it does the job. The only thing I have an issue with is how easily Joker escapes. Like when you bring him in, when he's strapped to the chair or whatever you call it, there's like armed police looking after him. But once he's unstrapped and being led to his cell, you only have like one regular unarmed guard guarding him. It's really really silly. But ultimately, it's not a game that you play for the story. But yeah, that part was a bit
You play for the lore.
the law. Yeah. But anyway, story still does its job of, you know, getting you on a chase and taking you around Arkham Asylum. So the thing initially I was a bit reluctant to play Asylum because I heard about how Arkham City was open world and yeah. But I think Asylum's structure is pretty interesting. I guess it's Metroidvania-ish. There are some areas you come back to later with a new gadget to unlock, there'll be a trophy behind a destructible wall that you go back to after you unlock the explosive gel, and you'll be running around the place, revisiting
Yep.
certain areas, etc. And it makes the place feel open without feeling overwhelming like a typical open world game.
Yeah, it's basically a small hub design where there is this main hub that connects with many
The different
different buildings.
buildings, yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah. Okay,
Oh,
combat. The the the
yes, the main selling
the
thing,
main selling
selling
point.
point.
Yeah. I suck at the combat to be honest, which is kind of weird because before starting Arkham, I played games like Sleeping Dogs, Shadow of Mordor, and I mean I didn't excel at those games, but at the same time, I did not expect to suck so much at Arkham Asylum. I don't really know why. I think it's because the takedowns can be interrupted, whereas Sleeping Dogs and Shadow of Mordor, you don't have to. You can cancel immediately to block, I think, or in Sleeping Dogs case, you don't have to like take down enemies when they're on the ground. So it makes things easier compared to this, where timing is more important. And also I think because I haven't played Arkham style combat in ages, so it took me a while to get used to the rhythm again. And because the early encounters have very few enemies, the fights would be over before I could get fully used to the rhythm. That's my main complaint. But overall, even though I kept getting my ass handed to me, I really enjoyed the combat. But that's in terms of the main Batman versus the goons combat. When it comes to the boss fights, I hate them. The most of the boss fights involve tanky enemies that charge at you and you have to dodge out of the way or like hit them with a battering at the right time and then hit them while they are stunned. And at the same time the game will throw waves of regular enemies at you. So at least 50% of the challenge comes from the swarms of regular enemies rather than the main boss. And the main bosses, they get so repetitive because it's the same pattern for like 4 to 5 times, I think. Yeah,
Mhm. Right, but you can change up a lot with using different kinds of gadgets, different kinds of takedowns, and also combos.
Yeah, I think that applies to the basic Batman against the goons, throwing batarangs, using your hook to pull them towards you. It's a very nice system. There's enough variety, but doesn't feel overwhelming. There's enough upgrades, enough gadgets, just nice. But against the bosses, you only you're just throwing batarangs. That's it. Even against Poison Ivy, which is a bit more different, it's still just dodging, throwing batarangs, fighting off regular enemies, rinse and repeat. It's so boring. The only boss fight I enjoyed was the Joker fight because it was so easy for some reason. The Joker, yeah, I don't know why it was so easy when the weaker enemies, the weaker bosses give you a much harder time. But admittedly, I was so sick of the boss fights that I enjoyed the fact that Joker was easy to beat.
Well, technically, Joker is not physically fit.
But I
He
mean,
is
in the
just
boss fight, he
insane.
becomes super buff. He's like the buffest
Right,
enemy
true.
after Bane, but
The Titan Joker.
yeah, but you take him down so easily. Like, yeah, basically, I like the Scarecrow parts. Basically, if I'm not beating up regular enemies, I have a hard time enjoying the game. The Scarecrow sequences also super repetitive. The first time I played, I enjoyed the side-scrolling stealth style of the Scarecrow sequences, but after the second time, I was really sick of it. Like, enough, man, enough.
Okay.
Yeah, or Killer Croc, also a bit of stealth. But you're just stealth and throwing
Not
batarangs,
to make
also
noise.
super repetitive. Basically, when you're not brawling, everything feels repetitive. Aside from the stealth, that is. Yeah, so stealth. I also suck at the stealth. I don't know why, but I think I do enjoy it. Like the combat, I suck, but I still enjoy the stealth. But unlike combat, I can even after finishing the game, I still struggle to get used to the rhythm of the stealth sequences. I think because it's not like your usual stealth game, which is very cover based or shadow based. Over here, it's like I don't know how to describe it, but I guess the main thing is because the enemies have guns and you don't really have range stuff, and your distraction stuff is limited. Or and the second thing is how the enemies tend to bunch up. Usually in stealth games, enemies tend to be on their own, or you can easily separate them. But over here, they tend to walk in pairs, or when you take down someone, one whole group comes running at it, and then you have to wait like 10 or more seconds for them to disperse. And I'll be like wondering what I'm supposed to do while waiting for them. Like either they're in a group, or they're in line of sight of someone, or they're out in the open, easily spotted by their friends. It's yeah. I struggle to get used to the stealth. I guess part of the reason is because the game wants you to make use of the environment, like using the weak walls, using the gel to blow up walls while the enemy is walking there. But I guess you have to think more while I'm too impatient to use the
Yeah.
regular stealth systems. But yeah,
But I think it encourages you to play a quicker stealth. Because if you play too slow, the bodies
yeah,
will be found automatically.
yeah. Basically,
You
you
know
take down someone
how.
and then you grapple away. That part I'm fine with. It's the whole enemy grouping up thing that bugs me. I guess you can use that's why you have the Sonic Veteran with the exploding upgrade for those instances. But yeah, and also I noticed that at times the enemy when you speak up when you do a stealth attack from the back, enemies are very bad at noticing you. It's like when I don't expect them to notice me, they notice me. But when I expect them to notice me, they are super blind. Like yeah. But in the end, I still enjoy it. You know, like using your hook to tie up enemies, grappling from one uh, gargoyle to another, feels very Batmanish.
Yeah.
Yeah, and finally the puzzles, the side stuff. Yeah, the Riddler trophies you can find. Most of them I found by accident. No, not by accident. Sorry. The puzzles, yeah, where you have to guess what the Riddler is talking about and find the thing. Most of those I solved by accident, and the rest I just didn't bother. Not my kind of puzzle. But since you, YK Redfield, you completed the game 100%. What do you think of the Riddler stuff?
I think a lot of it you can see, but you cannot you don't know how to get it. So in the beginning, if I remember correctly, in the beginning of the game, you don't have the gadget to pick up some of those. So only in the later games where you are out of that area, then you have to keep in mind that there is such Riddler trophy in that area.
Or
So you have to
you mean like one of the early
track.
trophies where it's like behind a wall and you can only access it later when you get
Yeah,
your gel, yeah.
yeah, those kind of backtracking really plays a lot on how you explore the level once more to kind of
Yeah.
give another purpose for you to explore that area again. So this kind of exploration adding to the actual puzzle solving part of getting that trophy really, I find it really fun now.
What
Because I
about the
really
puzzles, like the ones where the reader gives you a quiz or like a puzzle, yeah, and you have to figure out what he's talking about.
yeah, those I think I just find it so much fun to figure out.
Okay,
Um
I guess if you like this kind of puzzles, you enjoy it. But if you're like me, you're in it mainly for the combat, you'll be like, I'm not going to bother with this.
yeah. That's why they make it optional.
Yeah,
So
it's
if
good.
you really like this kind of stuff and you really want to go into it, once you I think the fun part about puzzle is always once you solve it, once you figure it out what he is really talking about, then you get the aha moment and all the frustration before will suddenly just go away.
For me, I think most the ones that I did solve, at least half of them I solved by accident. I was just like walking around and suddenly, ching, you solved this riddle. I'm like, huh? Okay. And the only one that I figured out by myself, the Wayne Tower thing, I couldn't figure out how to get close enough to take a picture with detective mode. So I'm like,
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
I
Yeah,
couldn't.
that one took
Yeah.
me a while also. I think you have to zoom or something from a specific area where
Yeah,
you
I
can.
couldn't figure out which area, sadly. So yeah, never completed that. And finally, yeah, detective mode. It's a nice change of pace, but in the end, you're just following stuff in front of you, and yeah, it's not super engaging. I think it's a lot of reviews, from what I remember, tend to complain about detective mode in this Arkham series, but I don't really mind too much because it does its job as a pace changer. Yeah,
The thing is, detective mode kind of become something too useful where you constantly have to rely on it to
yeah.
play.
For
So might as
stealth,
well just
in stealth, yeah, I need to know where the enemies are,
yeah.
where the
So
yeah.
they kind of encourage you to constantly using it and defeat the purpose of not the visuals of when you're not using it.
Yeah, to be honest, the
You know.
combat before I finally got used to the flow of combat, I ended up using detective mode, and because I felt that because it highlights enemies, I thought that it was a lot easier to fight with detective mode on. I felt like it was easier for me to focus and notice when enemies were coming at me.
Yeah.
So yeah, 50% of my fights were with detective mode.
I didn't really like this kind of turning up a new vision kind of system mechanic. But in this case, well, it's Batman, and Batman has this
It's a law
detective
reason.
mode.
Yeah,
Yeah, it fits the narrative at least
yeah.
to
Okay,
have this kind of feature.
Okay, before we go into the visuals, I only have one more thing to say about the combat. The enemy types, like the enemies that you can't block, I mean you can't counter, or the electric enemies that are vulnerable from the front. These enemies I enjoy fighting a lot more than the bosses. It, yeah, that was the kind of challenge that I enjoyed more. I would rather have more of these special enemies than the boss fights, basically. Yeah.
What about the one holding the taser or
An
whatever?
annoying in some cases, because in some cases I feel like I can't fully control where Batman directs his punches towards, but overall it's
Oh,
yeah, I'm fine with it. And have you spoken about the combat feedback, the punching, how it sounds? If you haven't, I'm just gonna say it's super satisfying. style, you feel the bone-breaking power of his punches. Very, very good.
Mm.
And the animation, I mean, it's not a 2020 decade kind of animation, but it still holds up well for over a decade old game. And the same goes for the visuals, partly because it's dark, but also the textures and detail, they do hold up pretty well. Like when you die and you see the Joker or Harley Quinn taunting you, I never feel like, wow, that looks super dated. No, it still looks pretty good.
It was ahead of its time when it was
Yeah,
released back then.
yeah. I never felt like I was playing a super old game. Like some years like Modern Warfare 2, it's still fun to play today, but when I look at it, I definitely feel like, yeah, this came out in 2009. But for Arkham Asylum, I don't feel that. To me, it feels like something that came from 2014 or something. Okay, maybe not 2014, but 2012 maybe. Yeah, it doesn't feel horribly dated at all. So, conclusion, I suck at the game. A lot of things annoy me, mainly the boss battles and the any the boss battles and the scarecrow sequences. But in the end, I enjoyed the game a lot. Even though I kept getting my ass handed to me in the combat and in the stealth sequences, I still enjoyed being Batman, basically.
Right. Yeah, that was actually my last questions that I want to ask you. Is that we talk about all these mechanics, visuals, everything in the game that are really only serving one purpose, and that is, do you feel like a Batman when
So
you are playing it?
yeah, so I'm not a big Batman fan. I don't read the comics, but I would say yeah, it does. Like you have your visor thing, there's your skill in combat, the gliding. Yeah, I guess it does feel like Batman. Like there's the Riddler puzzles, there's a grappling hook, there's the gliding, the fear. Actually, I'm not really sure what the fear element in the stealth sections does, but it's nice to see how the enemies start to get scared of you as you take more of them down. Your gadgets,
Ah,
the explosive gel, the grappling hook, the thing that you use to get from one end to another, whatever it's called, the
mm,
sliding thing, which I
yeah,
always
I
forget
do
to
remember.
use. Half of the time I'll be like, how
Mhm.
do I get across? And then I'll be like, oh yeah, remember you have this hook thingy that you can use to slide across. And your batarangs, of course, and the sonic batarangs. Yeah. So I would say, yeah, it does a good job of making you feel like Batman. And I guess that's why the series is so popular, because it sells that Batman fantasy with punchy combat and gadget variety.
Yeah, and give you the entire rogue gallery of villains.
Yeah. So TLDR, it's an old game, but it still feels good. I suck at it, but I still enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, Arkham Asylum. If you haven't played it, but you're interested, you should try it out, because it still holds up pretty well. And even when a lot of things about it, even though I personally found a lot of things annoying, overall I would still recommend it. Yeah. So yeah, that's it for this episode of Finally Played. Hope you enjoyed it. I don't know
Yeah.
what game we'll cover next. Maybe Hitman Codename 47 by Review. I think you're playing that.
Yes, I am playing that, and I didn't understand. Well, okay, that for another time.
Yeah, that'll be for the next episode. But for now, Starfish out.
I can review out.